Hello and thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Sheen, I'm a managing editor here at Stratfor, and I'm joined today by Mark Fleming-Williams, Europe and economy analyst, to talk about the Greek crisis. Now Mark, you've just been on the phone to our other European analyst, Adriano Bossoni, who's been in Athens. Where are we now?
So we've come off a very active weekend. On Friday night at 1 o'clock in the morning, the Greek Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, came on TV, announced a referendum on the terms of the bailout, which had been offered by the Europeans and the creditors. And then on Saturday, we get the Eurogroup coming out and announcing that the bailout would not be extended beyond today, the 30th. And then on Sunday, we get the European Central Bank coming out and announcing that the emergency liquidity assistance would be frozen. As a result of that, the Greek government announced capital controls, which basically means that the Greek banks didn't open yesterday. They're not going to open today, and they won't be opening until after the referendum, which Tsipras announced, which will take place on Sunday.
Now, to a layperson like myself, this sounds extremely serious. What can Greece actually do? How can the banks continue to survive in this climate?
They're living on the very basic bare necessities at the moment. People at the moment within Greece are able to withdraw 60 euros a day. There's talk that might actually go down to 20 euros a day. So everyone is tightening belts, and it's a very worrying situation, I think, within Greece. In terms of the next steps, we're not expecting any great change to take place necessarily before Sunday. This referendum has been announced. The banks are now closed. Greece is obviously hurting. But in terms of moving parts, there don't seem to be that many moving parts actually in play at the moment.
So Mark, Tsipras, he's sticking to his guns when it comes to the referendum itself. What will this actually achieve for him and the party?
So what the referendum will achieve depends on who you ask. From the Greek perspective, from Tsipras's perspective, the referendum is on the terms of the bailout, which have been offered by the Europeans on Thursday. Of course, the Europeans withdrew the offer. The offer no longer stands. So in a way, the referendum is kind of on nothing. What the Europeans have been painting it as is a referendum on a vote for or against Europe. That's what they've been trying to get the Greeks to think of it as. And the reason is because if you ask a Greek person whether they think reforms are a good thing, they'll say no. And if you ask them whether they think Europe is a good thing, they'll say yes. So each side is trying to pull it in their direction. The phrasing of the referendum is actually very clear, but it's very complicated. So it says, do you want to accept the terms which have been offered by the creditors? But from a Greek perspective, you're not that familiar with the terms that have been offered by the creditors. So it's very hard to know what you're voting for.
Do you have any indication which way the Greek population is likely to vote at all?
Well, it's too early for opinion polls. So obviously it can go either yes or no. If it goes yes, then it's probably quite a simple eventuality. We most likely end up with Tsipras and the Syriza government having campaigned for no. The Syriza government has said the terms are unreasonable and we should be voting them down. And under those circumstances, the Syriza government would probably resign, and we would get a new kind of government coming in, which would be much more willing to deal with the creditors. In the case of a no, there is no indication that the Syriza government would actually be willing to take Greece out of Europe. So most likely, the Syriza government would then take this mandate, which they would see as improving their position, take that to the creditors and say, look, you must deal with this now. We have the people's backing. There's also no indication that the creditors at this stage would change their position. The creditors have got a strong desire not to set a precedent. If it became clear that all you needed to do to change the creditors' minds was to launch a referendum, then there are many other parties across Europe, particularly Podemos in Spain, which is coming up to a general election towards the end of this year. It would be clear that's the way you do it. You launch a referendum and then the creditors are putty in your hands. The creditors will be very aware of that. So Tsipras and the Syriza government could come out of this with a no vote, feeling empowered, and reality might strike. And actually they would find that their negotiations are not going to go anywhere. In the meantime, the thing to remember, of course, is that the banks are currently on life support. The capital controls are having their effect, and this is not a sustainable situation. So in that situation, we would expect the government to fall. So either way, it's not looking very good for Syriza and the Greek government at the moment.
And the life support you mentioned is dwindling by the day and by the hour.
By the hour, yes, indeed.
Mark, thank you so much for sharing this insight with us. For more on the Greek crisis, please continue to read stratfor.com.